The night sky over Beijing was unusually quiet, like it was holding its breath for something it hadn't witnessed in years. Lights glittered across the cityscape, cold, distant, indifferent. Yet inside one solitary studio on the 29th floor, the air vibrated with a tension so raw it almost felt like electricity. Xiao Zhan stood alone in front of the massive glass window, watching the blur of headlights on the highway below. His reflection stared back at him, pale, eyes tired, but burning with something he had buried so deeply he thought he'd never feel it again. A soft click of the door behind him made his heartbeat stumble. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. But he knew. Only one person in the world could walk in without knocking and turn silence into a thunderstorm. Yibo. The sound of footsteps echoed, slow and measured, like he was crossing the distance not just of the room, but of years. Xiao Zhan's chest tightened. He didn't turn around, afraid his voice would betray him, afraid his eyes would reveal everything he had fought so hard to erase. "Still avoiding me," Yibo said quietly, his tone calm but carrying a weight that slammed into Xiao Zhan's spine. "I'm not avoiding you," Xiao Zhan answered, though the words felt weak. "I'm just thinking about us." Boaz. And the truth, sharp as a blade, hung in the air between them. Xiao Zhan's throat tightened. Words threatened to spill, but he swallowed them back, locking them behind the familiar walls of self-protection. Silence returned, heavy, suffocating, until Yibo stepped closer, the warmth of his presence brushing against Xiao Zhan's back. "You said you were done with me," Yibo said, voice breaking only for a second. "But you still look at me like I'm the only thing you see." That was the problem. He was. Xiao Zhan closed his eyes, the memories flooding in like a tidal wave. The laughter, the late-night conversations, the stolen glances during rehearsals, the shared dreams whispered between exhaustion and hope. They had loved each other like fire, beautiful, bright, but dangerously consuming. And then they lost it all. Not because the love disappeared, but because the world demanded they bury it. Xiao Zhan finally turned. And there he was, Wang Yibo, older, sharper, more controlled, but with the same eyes that once held galaxies made only for him. "What do you want from me, Yibo?" Xiao Zhan asked softly. Yibo didn't hesitate. "I want the truth." Xiao Zhan felt his heart drop. "What truth?" "That you never stopped loving me." The room seemed to inhale, walls pulsing with tension. Xiao Zhan stepped back instinctively. Distance had always been his shield, but Yibo followed, closing the space with a determination that sent shivers down his spine. "Say it," Yibo pressed. But Xiao Zhan shook his head, voice trembling. "You know why I can't." "No," Yibo shot back. "I only know that you walked away without giving me a chance to fight. I only know that one day you were mine, and the next day you vanished." Xiao Zhan's breath cracked. "I left because I didn't want to be the reason your career burned. I left because I thought protecting you meant losing you." Yibo's jaw clenched, emotion flashing like lightning across his eyes. "I never needed your protection, Xiao Zhan. I needed you." The words cut deeply, too deeply. And suddenly, the dam Xiao Zhan held inside him broke. "You think it was easy," Xiao Zhan whispered. "You think walking away from the only person I've ever—" He stopped himself, heart racing. But Yibo heard the unfinished sentence. "The only person you've ever loved." Yibo stepped forward until their foreheads nearly touched. "Then why does it hurt you so much to admit it now?" Because admitting it meant reopening a wound he had barely survived. Because admitting it meant giving Yibo the power to break him again. Because admitting it meant hope. And hope was dangerous. But Yibo lifted a hand, gently brushing a stray tear from Xiao Zhan's cheek. The touch was warm, familiar, and devastatingly soft. It triggered every memory Xiao Zhan had sealed away. "You lost me once," Yibo whispered. "Don't lose me again." The words trembled like a confession aching for release. But the world outside their window didn't care. The phones, the cameras, the expectations, the chaos, they had destroyed the first version of their love. The scars stayed, etched into their souls. Xiao Zhan pulled away, wrapping his arms around himself like a shield. "It's not that easy, Yibo." It is, Yibo insisted, voice steady. You're the one making it hard. Xiao Zhan's broken laugh echoed through the room. You think love is enough to survive this industry? It was enough for me, Yibo answered. And suddenly, Xiao Zhan saw it. Not the idol, not the superstar, but the boy who used to fall asleep on the studio couch beside him, whose laughter filled rooms, whose heart beat with sincerity in a world built on illusions. The boy he once loved. The boy he never stopped loving. Xiao Zhan's chest tightened painfully. Yibo, I'm scared. Yibo didn't hesitate. He closed the distance again, cupping Xiao Zhan's face with both hands, forcing him to meet his eyes. Then be scared, Yibo said softly. But be scared with me. Not alone. Something warm and fragile flickered in Xiao Zhan's heart. Oh, dangerous, irresistible hope. But just as Xiao Zhan opened his mouth to speak, his phone buzzed loudly on the table, cutting through the moment like a knife. Both men froze. The screen flashed with a name both of them recognized, one tied to contracts, negotiations, public images, and the cold machinery of fame. Reality, merciless, brutal, shoved its way between them. Xiao Zhan stepped back. Yibo's expression shuttered instantly, frustration hidden beneath a forced calm. So this is how it is again? Yibo asked, voice tight. We get close and then you run. Xiao Zhan looked down, unable to bear the disappointment in Yibo's eyes. It's not that simple. Yibo exhaled sharply. It's always simple. It's just never simple for you. Anger, confusion, heartbreak, everything tangled inside Xiao Zhan's chest. I'm trying, Yibo. No, Yibo said quietly. You're trying to convince yourself you don't want this. Xiao Zhan's voice shook. And you're trying to force something that can destroy us. Or save us, Yibo countered. Their eyes locked. Two hearts caught in the gravitational pull of a love too powerful to ignore, too dangerous to embrace. The silence deepened until even the city lights outside felt like they were waiting for one of them to break. Xiao Zhan's phone buzzed again. This time he didn't look away. He didn't hide. He stared at Yibo with a vulnerability so raw it stole the breath from both of them. What do you want me to say? Xiao Zhan whispered. That I still love you. That I never stopped. That every night I wish things were different. Yibo's eyes widened. Xiao Zhan continued, voice trembling. Because all of that is true. Every word. But loving you once destroyed me, Yibo. And I'm scared it will again. Yibo stepped closer, but this time his touch was soft, almost fragile, like he was afraid Xiao Zhan would shatter. Then let me protect you, Yibo whispered. Let me be the one who doesn't run. Xiao Zhan's breath faltered. The confession lingered in the air. Oh, fear, love, pain. A mix too potent, too beautiful, too tragic. Yibo lifted his hand and gently intertwined their fingers. We lost our love once. Don't let fear make us lose it again. Xiao Zhan looked at their hands. The door handle twisted slowly, and Xiao Zhan's heart stopped. He could feel Yibo tense beside him, their fingers still linked, neither of them ready to face whatever or whoever stood behind that door. For a brief, suspended second, everything inside Xiao Zhan screamed to pull his hand away, to step back into the safety of distance. But he didn't move. He couldn't. The bond between them, fragile and newly exposed, held him still. The door opened just an inch, a shadow, a silhouette, and then abruptly shut again, like whoever it was sensed the intensity flooding the room and decided to escape before drowning in it. Xiao Zhan exhaled shakily. Yibo released the breath he'd been holding. But neither let go. Not yet. The silence that followed wasn't like the heavy, suffocating one from before. This one hummed, alive, charged, thick with words neither knew how to say. Yibo finally broke it. So, you weren't going to let go? Xiao Zhan looked down at their intertwined hands. His voice came out soft, honest in a way he hadn't allowed himself to be in years. I didn't want to. That admission hit Yibo harder than any dramatic declaration could. For a moment, he simply looked at Xiao Zhan like he was seeing him for the first time again, the man he once held, loved, dreamed with. But then the moment faltered. Xiao Zhan gently slipped his hand away, stepping back, not out of rejection but self-preservation. "We can't stand too close to the fire," Xiao Zhan whispered. "Not yet." Yibo's jaw tightened. "We've already been burned. What's left to be afraid of?" "Losing everything," Xiao Zhan replied. Again. Yibo approached, slow and deliberate, stopping only when he was close enough that Xiao Zhan could feel his breath. "You say losing everything like you weren't the greatest thing I lost." Xiao Zhan's eyes snapped up. The words cut deep, sweet and devastating at the same time. His voice cracked when he spoke. "Don't say things like that." "Why?" Bo asked. "Because it's true." "Because I can't handle it," Xiao Zhan whispered. Yibo raised a hand, hesitated for a fraction of a second, then brushed a thumb across Xiao Zhan's cheek. "You don't have to handle it alone." Those words hit the deepest wound. Because that was exactly how they separated. Alone, fighting battles they never confessed to each other, letting silence swallow what love couldn't protect. Xiao Zhan stepped back again, but this time with trembling resolve rather than fear. "Yibo, the things we went through, the pressure, the rumors, the shadows," his voice strained. "We can't pretend things are simple just because we feel something again." Yibo looked at him with a kind of gaze that made the world feel small, irrelevant. "I'm not pretending. And you're not either." Xiao Zhan looked away, blinking tears he refused to let fall. Ba sighed softly. "Tell me what's going on in your head. Please." Xiao Zhan hesitated, then finally gave voice to the truth that had lived inside him ever since he walked away. "I never stopped loving you," he whispered. "But I don't know how to fix what we broke." Yibo's face softened, every rough edge melting away. "We don't fix the past," he said. "We build something new." Xiao Zhan shook his head. "And what if it crashes again?" "Then we fall together," Yibo answered without hesitation. The sincerity in his eyes was overwhelming. Xiao Zhan stood frozen, torn between the familiarity of heartbreak and the terrifying possibility of hope. His fingers twitched, as if wanting to reach out again, wanting to take back the warmth he had just let go. Ba saw it. And instead of stepping forward again, he turned and walked deeper into the room, giving Xiao Zhan space he didn't ask for but desperately needed. This, more than anything, made Xiao Zhan's chest ache. Yibo wasn't forcing anything. He was simply staying. Present. Patient. Real. It was almost enough to break Xiao Zhan's composure entirely. He watched Yibo move around the room, picking up a script on the table. He flipped through it casually, then smiled a little. "You still highlight your lines in blue?" Bo asked. Xiao Zhan blinked at the unexpected shift. "You remember that?" Yibo glanced at him. "I remember everything." Every word carried weight, history, tenderness, and longing. Xiao Zhan swallowed hard. "I only do that because you said it helped you focus while we rehearsed." Yibo's smile softened into something delicate, almost painful. "You kept the habit." Xiao Zhan nodded once, shyly. Yibo stared at him for a long moment, so long it felt like the past unfurled between them. Two young men, laughing through rehearsal mistakes, stealing glances when the world wasn't watching, falling in love in moments so small they didn't even notice they were falling. Xiao Zhan shifted under the intensity of Yibo's gaze. "We can't go back," he whispered. "I don't want to go back," Yibo replied. "I want to go forward, with you." The words lingered like a promise neither dared to fully accept. Xiao Zhan turned toward the window again. The city lights blurred into streaks of gold and white. His reflection beside Yibo's looked like a memory, haunting and beautiful. "Yibo," he began, voice cracking. Yibo stepped behind him, close enough for Xiao Zhan to feel his warmth but not close enough to overwhelm him. What if we try?" Xiao Zhan murmured. "And it destroys us?" Yibo's answer came quietly, but it shook the room. "What if we don't try?" he whispered. "And we destroy ourselves instead?" Those words hit Xiao Zhan like thunder. He turned slowly, meeting Yibo's eyes, really meeting them, for the first time without shields, without fear, without pretending. Yibo held his gaze with a softness that melted every defensive wall Xiao Zhan had built. And then, Xiao Zhan stepped forward. Just a little. Just enough. Their foreheads touched, a small, trembling, fragile moment, but more intimate than any kiss, more devastating than any embrace. Yibo closed his eyes. Xiao Zhan did too. No words. No explanations. Just breathing the same air again after so many years of emptiness. Just rediscovering a love neither had truly lost. Just finding the courage to begin again. But just when Xiao Zhan felt himself slipping into the moment, letting his heart open, a loud vibration shattered the silence. His phone. Again. Reality. Again. He pulled back sharply. Yibo's expression flickered with disappointment, but he masked it quickly. Xiao Zhan picked up the phone, saw the name flashing, and clenched it so tightly his knuckles whitened. I have to take this. Yibo nodded, though his heart sank. Xiao Zhan walked toward the corner of the room, but stopped halfway. He turned back. Yibo, he said softly. Yes. Xiao Zhan hesitated, then said the one sentence that held all of his fear, longing, hope, and pain. Don't leave. Yibo froze. Then slowly, he smiled. I wasn't planning to. As Xiao Zhan stepped away to answer the call, Yibo stayed exactly where he was, waiting, grounded, steady, like a promise Xiao Zhan had been needing for years. The lost love wasn't healed. Not yet. But it wasn't running anymore. And it wasn't hiding anymore. It was breathing again. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more amazing episodes.